Right, we're in the panel session. So this panel session is all about raspberry jams. Now, personally, I think raspberry jams are amazing. I think they're great things, but not everybody understands how to run a raspberry jam. So I've collected here a bunch of people who either held a raspberry jam or have been to one, and from different places. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to give them about 2 minutes each to introduce themselves. 2 minutes, and I'll be timing. I can't stand people who run over the time. Oh, I should have finished by now. And then we're going to take some questions from the audience. But what I'm going to do first of all, I'm going to see if anybody sends any questions on Twitter. So you're going to write a question. You're going to write the word panel in there, and R Jamboree, #R Jamboree. We're going to take Twitter questions first of all, and then we'll find out the live audience. And we have a microphone we will pass around. So we're going to start from the right-hand side. Okay, so you only get 2 minutes each. Go, introduce yourself. You need a microphone.
Hello. So I'm Jack. I'm a computer science student at Birmingham University. I normally attend Manchester Raspberry Jam, which is organised by Ben over here, and I'm struggling to organise a university Raspberry Jam at my place as well. So I like Raspberry Jam because it allows people who are completely new to computer science just to sort of figure out what it's all about through the Raspberry Pi, which I'm sure everyone here will agree is an awesome device just because it's so cheap. And it lets people sort of try computing with no barrier to entry, because you can know nothing and come along and figure out what it's all about, or you could come and be the world's most awesome person and see what you can do with a Raspberry Pi.
So tell us your name and what you do.
I'm Dawn Hewitson. I'm from Edge Hill University in Ormskirk. I've attended Ben's Raspberry Jam meetings. I've also attended the Preston Raspberry Jam events, and I've also hosted one at Edge Hill University, which was really successful.
Hello, my name is Ben Smith. I'm a secondary school teacher at AKS in Lytham St Anne's. We were teaching the ECDL course on Microsoft Office skills for the past 5 years, and obviously with the new push into the new curriculum, we're all looking to start doing more computing skills. So we've been looking at Python coding, we've been looking at the Raspberry Pi as a platform for delivering that, and we've just started setting up little clusters in the school for the kids to start using Scratch and start doing some coding.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm just a mum who takes my kids to Raspberry Jams because there they can find people who will help them that I can't help them with. So it's a great community that they can find out. You know, they can always find someone who can help them with whatever problem they've got. Sorry, that's it.
Hi, I'm Ben Nuttall. I'm the organiser of Manchester Raspberry Jam. I work as a software developer, so it's my sort of full-time thing as well as my hobby. And set up the Raspberry Jam in last summer, and we've run 9 of them now, monthly at the Mad Lab. Raspberry Jam was just an idea for a sort of a one-off hack day where we would just come along and turn up with the pies and say, right, what we're going to do with them. Anyone can do whatever they like, and it's sort of evolved from there, and lots of people have sort of forked off their own projects of jams, and there's all sorts of different things going on around the country and around the world, in fact. So at ours, it's not sort of talks and presentations, it's just turn up and do whatever you like. So there's all sorts of things going on. People are making chickens that tweet, and scale electric tracks that can controlled by makey-makeys or whatever else, and there's all sorts of things. Lots of people who do different things. Some people turn up, they don't know what the Pi is or what to do with it, and they just find out. So it's a sort of free for all. Encourage that kind of collaborative group work and that sort of thing.
So I'm looking for questions, and I don't really had any yet from Twitter. We've had one from Miss Mo, who's Ask Miss Mo, and she says we're desperate for a jam in Birmingham. She's available to help with setting up and recruiting members. So somebody who might be in Birmingham at the moment, got an answer?
Yes. So I'm actually, is this on? Switched it on.
So talk close to me for a minute while we make sure whether this
Hello,
is on.
Hello, Alan. This is very comfortable.
Now try that.
Hello.
Is that on? No.
Can we try the other one?
Hello. Yeah, so I'm trying to organise a Raspberry Jam in Birmingham as well, at Birmingham University. We currently have a sort of registration page for people who'd be interested. So I think that's at bhamrasjam.eventbrite.com. There's also a Twitter page for at bhamraspjam. But I think more generally, a thing you find is that everywhere is really... Well, what I've found at least is if you build it, they will come, because I put a couple of messages on the Raspberry Pi forums and a couple of other places like Linux user group mailing lists and other sort of general technology mailing lists saying, if I ran this, would anyone turn up? And lots of people just said yes. And there are also lots of people who said yes, and I'd really like to help as well. So I'm just going to run it, and if people come, great. And if people don't come, then, oh well, at least we tried. So, yeah.
So we're going to move on to another question now. So we've had a question, so this is for anybody, from Chris Armitage on Twitter. He's at Chris Armitage. What kind of time requirements are needed for organising a jam? Now I'm wondering if Dawn or Ben have got an insight on that.
Okay, so it depends. We've talked about this quite a lot, in that the Raspberry Jam has many flavours. It isn't just a one side. There's not a sort of a one set format. You can have a whole day event with a series of workshops in, which is like the one I organised, and similar to sort of today's format, although not on as a grander scale. And you can ask people to come and deliver and prepare things and show things. Or you can also have just sort of a mass meeting like Ben's, where people bring things along. And I'll let Ben talk to you a little bit more about that. Okay?
So I run my Raspberry Jam from 10 o'clock in the morning normally on a Saturday or a Sunday. And we run it from 10 till about 4, 5, sometimes 6. It's kind of... We kind of set that as a time scale for the event, and some people do turn up sort of part way through the day or leave early or both. So yeah, people see it as a bit of a free for all. So and as I said earlier, it's sort of anyone can do whatever they like. There's no I have attempted a couple of times to try and schedule things and say, right, we're going to do this at 11 and this at 12 or whatever. But I think sometimes it kind of fades out and people just want to just hack on. So that's worked for me. It might I think the Preston one's a bit more scheduled. So certain people will find strength in trying to organise things and schedule things. But for me, it's just worked out like that.
So I've been to several jams now. I went to Bristol and I've been to Manchester, I've been to Preston, I've been to Ormskirk, I've been to several.
Cambridge.
Cambridge. They do seem to be it's as lower level and as disorganised as you like, or as formal. And if you've got access to different rooms, then you can run different workshops at the same time, similar to the setup today. But I'm thinking myself of kind of just labelling a school event as a Raspberry Jam, because I don't think there is, this is how it's done. I think the idea is the jam is, the pie is just kind of the keystone. It just brings everybody together to talk about what types of things you can do on a computing platform that are engaging and fun to do. And I don't know, just get people involved. It's just a nice ethos at these events.
On a less formal scale, one of the things that I have done is I'm involved with an organisation that's very interested in genealogy. And so I've taken the Raspberry Pi along there, and I've actually set up a group where people could use the Raspberry Pi if they wanted to create records of their own family history. I've also had a Raspberry Jam around my dining table in my own home, where people have come and have actually demonstrated the Raspberry Pi to them and showed them what it does. But one of the things that I'd like to say about Ben's Raspberry Jam event, something that I think is particularly good, is he has a space where people can post a post-it note about what you want to learn about, and people also volunteer what they're actually offering and what they're bringing to the Raspberry Jam. And it's a good way of linking things up. It's a fantastic experience, and if you haven't been, you need to come to Mad Lab, because it is a really good one. Thank you.
Just to add on to that, an idea was just to have sort of 2 columns of post-it notes, and people can just write on something. Oh, I want to learn Python. Put Python on the left-hand side, the skills I want. And if they can contribute anything, or if anyone else wants to contribute anything, say, oh, well, and then you can sort of pair people up. So, oh, this person wants to teach Python, this person wants to learn Python. And it's a brilliant way of sort of pairing people and say, right, get together. This is Bob, this is Dave. Here, there you are. Go over there. And you get some really interesting collaboration there. And that's what the whole Pi community is all about. you see on the Raspberry Pi website, on their blog, it's all these amazing projects people are doing, and they're sharing, saying, this is how I did it, this is what I've done, it's amazing, and this is how I did it. And it's all, and then you can fork that off, somebody else can do it, do the same thing, and take their own path with that. So it's what the whole community is all about.
Can I add then, at Accrington Academy, another jam that I've attended, your two ran a session at the end with, I think it was 16 or 18 secondary school students, and yours was showing them some fantastic stuff that they'd done.
Well, I don't tend to get too involved with what the children have way surpassed anything that I can help them with, which is grateful. This is why I'm very grateful that there are people like Ben around and people at MadLab who can help them and encourage them and support them further. So even if you're thinking it's too complicated, I don't know where to start, if you don't know where to start, then just find out a local hack space, find a local jam, and there's always people who will help, or somebody knows somebody who else can help. So yeah, and the confidence that my two children have got over the last couple of years, just by being with like-minded people who can support them and give them more advice, has been great. So I'm really grateful to the entire community.
So just for the moment, just to remind people, thanks Lisa, we're taking questions from Twitter first and then we'll go to the audience. So it might be that if you're, oh go on, go for it.
It's come up a couple of times as well. The various panel members have said, do you think there is an application of the Raspberry Jam model in education? Do you think that approach could be used either within or outside of the curriculum for schools particularly?
And to add to that, we've got two questions on Twitter which are saying the very same thing, is how can this help teach computing, and how can you encourage children to be excited with a jam? So
absolutely. I forgot to say when I introduced myself that I am the PGCE IT course leader, and one of my roles is to ensure that computer science is taught in schools and that my trainees are teaching the relevant technology. And yes, the Raspberry Jam model does fit into education, and yes, you can conduct a Raspberry Jam in a school. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a spectrum, and I think they can be a real pop-up kind of event. With the clusters that I'm setting up in my school library at the moment, there's nothing stopping one of the kids that knows how to do something just starting a jam. And I think one of the things that is really, I think, beneficial of the post-it note idea is you need to have that element of anonymity sometimes and informality. And you put your ego on the back stage and you just say, look, everybody can offer you something. Everybody's got something that they've tried to do on it that you can benefit from.
Okay, sorry, can I just
after you.
go? Right. If you do want to get some help, the best place I would go is for the STEM ambassadors. There's a couple in the room here. They're based in MOSI, the Museum of Science and Industry in Manchester, and they have a network of ambassadors who will come and help you set up code clubs or run Raspberry Pi jams, and they're willing to help. So it gives everyone a wave. So there's Donna and Dan. So.
Yeah, so Donna, Dan and I are running a Raspberry Jam at the Museum of Science and Industry in a couple of weeks' time. We're inviting schools to send their kids along. It's going to be during the week, part of National Science Week, so that's a kind of pilot, if you excuse the pun there. As a pilot, running that session, running sort of activities for kids throughout the day, so we'll see how that goes and let everyone know, and it'd be great to see more of that sort of thing. That's going to be run by STEM ambassadors. So we're going to sort of train them up a bit and sort of show them how to pass this along to the kids.
Can I add something as well? Some of the questions that are coming through at the moment are directed to the panel, and then others are saying, "Oh, I'm in Middlewich. How can we have a Raspberry Jam in this place?" And every day I get sort of 10, 15 emails from people saying, "Oh, I'm in this place. When are we having a Raspberry Jam there?" And I always want to turn the question back to them. No, you tell me, when are you having one in Middlewich? So there's somebody who couldn't be here today, and I wish they could. Robert, he sent me an email one day, and he said, "How old do you have to be to have a Raspberry Jam?" And I said, "Well, how old are you?" He said, "I'm 15. So you're the age you need to be to have a Raspberry Jam." And I said, "But you kind of need a few people who are older than 15, like some teachers to help you." So they decided they were going to have one in their school. Yes, it was that amazing. Yeah. And it was in a place called Machynlleth in Wales. I'd never heard of it, and he's helped put Machynlleth on the map because 15-year-old decided he was going to have it. 80 people turned up. they've had BBC Radio Wales have been in, and he goes, gosh, I never even knew I could do this. So he's learning he's getting inspired and enthused with the Raspberry Pi, but now he's an event organizer. And if you want to have an event somewhere, go and do it. So don't ask me, when can we have one? No, tell me that you are, and we'll help publicise it. Sorry, I'm taking over now. so what? Oh, go on, Ben, you've got something to add, and Jack, go on.
I just wanted to sort of loop back to the question before about Raspberry Jam in schools, because one of the most awesome things I find about these Raspberry Jams is that naturally everyone has a different sort of level of knowledge. There are some people who are very knowledgeable about very specific and sometimes very esoteric fields, and then there are people who are completely new and are like, I'm a blank canvas, I want to learn. And you get this sort of osmosis learning where just by being in the same room with a load of people who are really enthusiastic about whatever it is, you just pick up stuff from them. And even if you don't really think, oh, I learned that today, you sometimes just see that people are so enthusiastic and that you can be as well. And one of the problems I found sort of moving from sort of A-levels to universities, you see there's a really widespread level of education. And sometimes you see people who've come from a background of teaching which hasn't necessarily inspired them, which is really at the end of the day what we want. And these events really let people see amongst themselves that there's something awesome out there that they don't necessarily see from a computing teacher. That's about it.
Any questions from the audience at the moment? No? Okay, so another question that comes up quite a lot, which is, well, hang on, I live in this place and there's no Raspberry Jams near me, but you've got Code Academy online, you've got Khan Academy, you've got all these videos online and all these books I can get. Why would you need to go to a Raspberry Jam? So I'm going to start with Lisa. Why would somebody need to go to a Raspberry Jam?
I think there's a sense of being with like-minded people and giving it, for my kids, the confidence has been the biggest difference. Yes, Amy's gone away and she's taught herself Python on Code Academy, but she's been to jams and she's learnt a lot more and improved upon what she's learnt on Code Academy just by sitting next to Ben. And it's collaborations and working together, and it's a sense of community. Keep saying the same word over and over again. It's just been so helpful and so inspiring for my kids that I'm just very grateful for everybody who's involved. So.
It's infectious. It rubs off on everybody. I went along very nervously, I have to add, to the Manchester the Manchester one, and the Manchester Jam, and I was really scared. I went in there, I'm a teacher, and you to actually have to admit as a teacher that you don't actually know something, it's a very brave thing to do. And from that, I've dragged my family along. My son's here today, he's over there, hi Reese, and my husband's with me, and it really is infectious. My daughter's boyfriend has come on board, and it's like a cold. And once somebody sneezes the Raspberry Jam, everybody is infected with it, and it really is like that. It really is.
I think anonymity's a funny thing, because on the internet it cuts both ways, doesn't it? When you're reading an article, you have no face to put to that article, and sometimes that's a useful thing, and being able to post a comment anonymously is, especially as you say as a teacher, it's a difficult thing to say, I don't know how to do that. And with the jams, you could arrive at a jam and you don't have to introduce yourself as I'm all this and all that. You can just turn up and kind of almost hide amongst the crowd. And it's really useful to be taken down a peg or two and be able to enter as a beginner into something like that. I found that very useful.
Any more questions coming through? Okay, we've got one. If we can get a microphone over there. Just tell us a little bit of your name or something. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Fiona, and I'm a parent of 2 young kids, and I'm trying to start a code club in a couple of schools and facing quite a lot of resistance from teachers. But I'm also interested in Hackspace, and the question is very pedestrian, I'm afraid. How do you finance yourselves? Because any space that we have in our village is going to have to be paid for, and it's kind of question of overcoming these kind of things.
I can reply to that. We set up a code club in our prep school 2-3 weeks ago now. And I found the same resistance. A lot of them don't have any computing background. They can do Microsoft Word, but if you say, we want to start actually coding something, they'd never used Scratch before, so I introduced that. But once you see how easy it is to use, I think you need a short, maybe an hour-long session with someone who knows what they're doing, and they realise Scratch is one of the easiest things to start using, and that just brings the pie out and says, this is what it does. Then linking it to the GPI Opens, I'm going to run in a session in an hour or two with Simon and Jason about how to do that. Just takes it to another level again. But I think Scratch is a really good platform to start nervous teachers into using things like that. And the Code Club resources are brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, the question's more about the financing, because I mean, I'm a parent, I'm an ex out of IT. I could teach it, but I'm looking for a job, so I might not be able to do it any longer. I've got another couple of volunteers who are in the same kind of position and won't be able to carry on if they get jobs. So, and the same with hack spaces. Any space, do you charge for
No.
Raspberry
How
Jams?
near are you to a school? How
school?
near are you to the school?
Very near.
Very near. You can ask the school if you can use the space there in the school. And there is a system called Eventbrite that you can actually set up tickets and charge people a very small nominal fee, £5, or whatever.
Some of you may have used it to get here today.
Yeah, and that will then fund part of what you want to do, of paying maybe a small rental fee for the space, or you may be fortunate enough to find somebody that will actually donate some space for you to actually use that within the school.
Yeah, well, we're trying to get the Huddersfield University involved as well.
So cost can be a barrier, but what I'm trying to do today is I'm hoping I can help people see through those barriers. So I didn't know whether I could pull today off, so I thought, well, I'm going to need some funding to make this happen. I wasn't sure how much I could ask, and a lot of people have turned up, and I could have sold another 300 if I wanted. So you can fund. People don't mind generally. People have said they're happy to pay £5 for a couple of hours, £10 for more than that. If they complain, well, they see what else they can get for their £5. But you don't have to collect any money whatsoever, because we've held them in events in locations that they came to us and said, we're Bristol and Bath Science Park. We want people to know we're there. People in Bristol and Bath didn't know it was there. So we had a jamboree there. We brought 300 people in on a weekday evening. And that's another one. Go on, Ben, you say it. You got the dud mic.
Hello. So I was just going to say that when I started the Raspberry Jam, we asked the Mad Lab, which was existing hack space running events. I said, could we run an event here, and we ran that one, and we didn't charge anything. We just invited people along as a bit of a pilot, and then thereafter we were running them monthly, and I started charging £3 for first timers, £5 for regular visitors, and people are prepared to pay that. They come along, and it's probably cost them more to get there, in fact, but and I just give that to the Mad Lab to help their costs. I also what you can do on Eventbrite is add a optional sort of any amount sponsorship, donation, sort of contribution. So that helps as well. We often we actually provide pizza for the attendees as well, so that goes towards that. We've also asked for larger sponsorship, actual sort of almost corporate sponsorship. So we've had Bite Mark have helped us out with that and provided pizza and given us money to spend, that sort of thing. So the BCS is another arm to go to. If you can ask them if they can help you out, because this is exactly what they're for, exactly what they do. They try to support this, especially in areas where the space isn't available, the money isn't available. So if you haven't got a hack space, at school is a perfect place to go. You probably wouldn't even need to charge if that was the case. But just asking for contribution is actually a really, I found to be a really
I'm interested to know, does that answer the question? Was it about the facilities or the resources?
Having previously been a governor in a school and also a chair of a parents' association, there are very few schools who don't want the opportunity to raise some money. And if you were to ask to use the school space and make a small nominal charge and donate that money to the school, I think that you'll find that your resistance from the teachers might be a little less. Okay?
And what some people do, some people get obsessed about how am I going to make this thing happen. maybe go to a jam first of all. I mean, some of the ones we had, we went to one in Cambridge, and we travelled all the way down to Cambridge, and there was people who travelled from Scotland to come to that because they just wanted to be there. You don't have to travel the length of the country, because they are, and I'm hoping soon that they'll spread, and we'll spread the jam further and further.
Sorry, I was going to say the Cambridge one was a fantastic setup, wasn't it? It was really, really impressive, but I think it's humble beginnings, isn't it? If it's just a room with one Raspberry Pi, you've
That's
got
all,
people together to start having a conversation, and once the ball's rolling and people see what's available, it's great. It's a really nice community.
Absolutely. Also, if you are struggling with the school, the STEM ambassadors, they are there to bring education and industry together. So they may be able to find you a local office somewhere of somebody who's got computers and things that aren't being used in the evening, and they could bring you together. So I'd have a word with Donna and Dan here and see if they can help.
Now, another thing I'm wondering if our panel can do is, so some of you, you've been to more than one jam, all of you. You've been to a few, yeah. So you've been to more than one jam. Do you ever see people come back month after month, and do you see progress or developments in what they've been doing?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I get a lot of regular attendees that.
We're playing past the mic, one of our games that panels play. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of my regular attendees are in the room. Actually, sort of seen a lot of them spotted around. We get all ages, so we've got parents that come with their kids. We've got sort of people, a few people my age and a bit older into their 30s, and yeah, we do get a lot of people coming back. Obviously, as I said, I have the first timer fee and the regular fee, so I do see the sort of a few of the numbers on that sort of thing. And I tweeted a graph recently of my attendee sort of spike going up. So we sort of at capacity now. So it's I think we're sort of sticking around 60 people coming a month now. So it's going really well.
I think you need to look back at where you've come from as well. I mean, if I was to look back at myself a year ago, I didn't have a clue. And as long as you're prepared to put the time in and read a little and look on the internet, and you're happy sitting and going back to being a student, you pick so much up just by taking a nice attitude into these groups.
Alan asked me to speak very briefly at the first Raspberry Jam in Cambridge, and my Raspberry Pi machine was still sat in a box on my dining room table, unopened. I'd not used it, not looked at it, and although, yes, I do have a modicum of knowledge about computing and computer science, that's where it stayed for quite a long time. And then I went to the jam, and that was it, out of the box it came. I had a look at it, I started, playing around with it, and then, from that, it is a natural enthusiasm.
So if there was a teacher, say in the room, who's been teaching ICT for a very long time, and they're a bit worried about this computer science thing, it's my microphone, would you encourage them to come? Do they have to have a Raspberry Pi to come to a jam? Do they have to know all about computer science? What would you say to them?
Again, you can start with a program as basic as Scratch really gets you into it, and then once you've started, I'm going to plug my own session again, playing with the GPI opens, then you see the purpose for the Pi. Otherwise, I don't know if it comes across as a low-end laptop almost to start with, and I felt almost the wow factor, I don't know, hit a block. And just recently, my enthusiasm just peaked again when I've seen the potential of the robotics attached to it. You really do need to get the thing doing something, but a lot of ICT teachers have never done physical computing. It's a DT teacher, it's an electronics job, and I've never had any background in that, so resistors aren't my thing. But you just need to speak to a few people who do have that kind of background, and you're there.
So there's a lot of different things that you'll see at the jam, and you'll see something that everyone's different. Everyone's got different sort of views on what their different interests, and they might see something and go, oh, that's great, they're doing this tweeting chicken. Oh, that's great, they're doing this robot thing. And there's always something for everyone. Or if they're a teacher, or if they're a parent with kids, they might see, Dan, he'll really like this, or Amy will be really interested in this, and they take away that and they'll say, have you got some resources for this, or can you help me with this? It doesn't even have to be a jam, just meeting and speaking with people. I invited my ICT teachers from my A-levels along to today. They're sitting here listening to me tell them this. And actually, some few months ago, I went to see them at their house, and I went around, plugged my Pi into their TV, and gave them a Python lesson. So, and that was really interesting. And they were saying, oh, we've got a few kids, and they're all, they were saying they're all different, and they've got these different interests. And they said, oh, such and such Bob, he'll really like this because he's really into like the coding side, and he'll like this. And some of the examples they said that he'd be able to take that and learn from it. And then I did something else, and they said, well, such and such, they'd be more interested in this side of it, or more interested in the sort of the clicking and the scratch and the drag and drop and that sort of thing. So if you just see something happen, you've opened yourself up to a whole new world of the different angles that you can view in that sort of thing. So
yeah. The Magpie magazines, if there's nothing local to you or you're feeling a bit nervous, if you get hold of the Magpie magazines, I think you can get the first 8 issues for £25 if you just go on the website.
That's the paper copies.
The paper copies, or you can get them free on PDF, so you can put them on anything, laptops, whatever, or print them yourself. There's something for everyone. There's starter projects at scratch, or through to the robotics and things. So you find yourself a little project there and get started. So you don't need to get out and meet people, but once you get started, you'll probably feel the need to find that community spirit of people. If you get stuck on something, they can help.
Yeah, I'll say something. Going back to what was mentioned before, is that you can kind of just learn this stuff online, and you can, go on Wikipedia or find some awesome websites that'll teach you this. But there really is nothing quite like going to a jam. And I remember maybe 3 months ago now, I went to the Manchester Raspberry Jam, and Simple Si, who is, I don't think he's, I can hear him, but I can't see him. He built a robot with a Raspberry Pi, and it moved around, and it used Scratch, and that was just the most awesome thing, because I'd done electronics GCSE, and I get what resistors are and how motors work, but seeing a Raspberry Pi drive a robot round with Scratch, which is awesome to teach kids, was probably the most exciting thing I saw. And you can go for a jam, and I left my Raspberry Pi in my bag that whole day. I never got it out, just because I was so amazed by what everyone else was doing. It's brilliant.
That's the session that's on a little later. Third plug of the session.
So we've got a question from the audience.
I'm Vicky Dodd. My question is, it kind of echoes what was asked at the back. If you're looking to start a Raspberry Jam, say in the middle of nowhere or somewhere that's not really had anything like this before, is there a resource centre, if you like, where people can go to and find a starting point and find the kind of guidance that they feel that they need, because they feel a little bit lost in setting these things up, that might then answer questions such as finance or support or sponsorship and all of that? Is there a central website? Because obviously it's not on Raspberry Jam's website. Is there a centre of resource?
So some of you have been very complimentary about this conference, but you have to realise I'm a teacher. I teach in a school Monday to Friday, and I lead a team of teachers. But it's been great watching all this enthusiasm for it. So what I've done is on the Raspberry Jam site at the moment, if you go through, there is like a how do you make your own Raspberry Jam, and there's a simple guide on there. And there are some case studies. If you go through the blog posts, you can read about the London Raspberry Jam, the Cambridge one, just to give you like an idea. And there are, so Oxford, every time they have a Raspberry Jam in Oxford, they blog about that, so you can read all about that. Something I'm hoping to do very soon is I've been talking to a few people about putting together like a pack so that people can read it. So there's questions coming through like, what do you do about CRB checks? So these are the checks that you make sure that everybody of all ages is safe and that kind of thing. So how do you do that? So there are solutions, and I'm hoping to be able to share those with you soon. I'm not going to be telling you all the answers today, but that will come later on. So
Can I mention, so it's Twitter, isn't it? If you've got #Raspberry Jam and you ask a question, there's so many people happy to help you out and want to be the person that helps you out. They'll be fighting for an answer to get in there first.
If you've been watching what's been happening on Twitter just now, when Jack said he's in Birmingham and he talked about a jam, there's about 2 or 3 people while you've been sat there are saying, yeah, let's have one. I'm going to bring children along to my school. And that's just how it happens. We've got this hyper-connected society. You just put Raspberry Jam on there, let's have one. And it just happens.
Can I just interject there, Alan? A couple of weeks ago, I'm just getting to grips with how the whole thing works, okay? And I just thought to myself, I'd really like to have a go with some robotics and different bits and pieces. I'm very busy and I don't have a lot of time. And I thought to myself, how am I going to do this? So I just literally got on Twitter and said, does anybody know? Okay, and Ben answered me, and Tim, who's at the back of the room there, he answered me, and they gave me clear guidance and directions as to where to go to purchase these things. It really is a network of people that want to help. And, most of us on the stand here have given up our time for nothing to go and help, perpetuate this movement because we feel passionate about it. It's not, something that we just think, it's another fad or a hobby or whatever. It's something that we really believe deeply is going to change the way that children are educated.
And you're all part of this. As soon as you tweet Raspberry Jam and I don't know what that is, immediately there will be people who see that post and think, oh, it's not just me then. And that kind of takes away this fear of, am I the only one who hasn't got a clue what they're talking about? You just need to get over that stage of, am I going to look like a fool? And everybody's there to help.
I think the question was more sort of asking about resources, actually physical sort of packaged material than just asking for help. So as you know, as much as that's obviously a really important thing and useful for people to hear. I think it's something that we need is a sort of central repository for these packaged activities that people can go right off the shelf. Right, this something like a GitHub sort of account that people commit and add to. Add projects to and say this is this is how you make a tweeting chicken. I don't know. I don't even think there is one of those. I've just made it up. And say right, this is download that one and it's got the sort of README and how this is how you do it, and you can give that to a group of kids or anyone and they can do it from there. So I kind of thought that's what today was going to be about, sort of centralizing that sort of thing, and I think it'd be really good. And maybe it could be on the part of the Raspberry Jamboree Jam website or something, but something where people know that that's the central repository. They send things to that and people can patch them up and fix them and add resources. And I mean, there is Code Academy and all the other websites, but for actually like step by step, I mean, there's the PieFace, there's a few resources available for that Andrew's provided, step by step, click this, click that, type this in, and it's explaining it as you go along. And you found those useful, haven't you? So there's a few things around there like that, and there's lots of things dotted about, but it'd be ideal to have it, as I said, in this sort of central repository. And if anyone wants to sort of talk to me about that, I'd love to try and help it get off the ground. GitHub would be perfect.
Right, I'm afraid we're just at the point where we cannot take any more questions in this session. However, our panel members are going to be around all day long. They've been to jams, they've got the experience. So even if you had that question that you've just sent through on Twitter or whatever, somebody will answer it in just a moment. Just just a few little ideas from the panel. What's the most amazing thing you've seen happen at a Raspberry Jam? The most amazing thing?
I suppose watching children who are a lot younger than me, like under 10 years old, do something completely amazing and learn programming, and that really makes me think, wow, the future generation is going to be awesome.
I think, again, seeing people working together with the families, but also seeing people like me who were a little bit frightened to start off with, getting a bit of confidence and having a go, and I think that's probably my contribution.
I'm a teacher. When the kids are there, especially if the parents are involved, I just think it's lovely. I think it's a really nice thing to see parents working with their kids and does something fun. It's great.
Yeah, it's given me an outlet to take my children and have some common ground. They know, and they're at the point now where they're teaching me how to do things. So it is a real family thing in a community that supports you as well.
Yeah, same here. I can concur really. It's great to see dads coming along, bringing their kids along, because the dads are of a generation that the computers they had, you had to tell it if you didn't want to program it, not the other way around. You actually had to manually tell it, no, I want to actually do this. Whereas the generation that now, you have to find how to get it to to program something. So it's kind of them rediscovering it in their in their children's eyes, and it's a whole new generation, and bringing that together and seeing the sort of father-son kind of thing and all that, and mother-daughter. Seeing that come together and just being facilitating in that has been great.
So none of our panel have been paid to do any of this. It's all volunteers. It's all based on volunteers. And they run and they go and they support Raspberry Jam. So we're going to just show our appreciation.